cheese to sour. Join us, come and waste an hour or two. We've got magic to do just for you. Welcome to Studio 10 Talks. Good evening, good evening, good evening. I'm Patrick Cassidy. I'm the artistic director for Studio 10 Talks. Did you vote? You have to vote. Vote. Tomorrow is the last day. Vote, 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 and I will stop steaming up my glasses. But vote. Get out there and vote. We have a terrific show tonight. First of all, I want to tell you guys, starting tomorrow, we have our first only Bourbon Sweepstakes. It starts tomorrow. You can get your tickets at studio10.com. This is an incredible thing. I think the tickets are about $10, and it's a sweepstakes, and you can win bourbon. Well, let me show you this one first. It's amazing. This is $250, this bottle of bourbon. And you can win this for less than $10 or about $10, right? Incredible. Bell Mead bourbon. And then, of course, we have this one over here. This is, ready? $1,200. $1,200, $250, and they make great earrings. I'm telling you, it's fantastic. Get on the website, $10. Win. It helps us. As you know, we survive on donations and producing theater. Right now, we cannot produce theater. So we have down there at the bottom a way for you at Studio 10 Talks to make a donation. Please do so. That would be great. And here we go. So our first guest tonight, I'm slowing down. Can you see me? I'm moving very slow on mine. We're good. I guess we're good, but I'm moving very slow on mine. Okay. Our first guest. He is the founder and artistic director of Kenny Playhouse Theater, Nashville, Tennessee. Also the producing artistic director for Cultural Alliance Nashville, a partnership between Nashville Shakespeare Festival and Kenny Playhouse Theater. A graduate from Florida and A&M University in Chemical Engineering. Kenny, we got to talk about chemical engineering. Wow, that's amazing. Television, stage, and film actor, found passion for youth theater, creator of Kids Cravings Acting Summer Camp. He received a Thrive grant from the National Metro Arts and allowed him to employ students at MLK High School. Please welcome Mr. Kenny Dozier.
Hello, hello. Patrick, thanks for having me, man.
Kenny, what's going on, pal? Good to have you here. Good to see you. Look at how impressive you've done. You're amazing what you've done in your life.
Oh no, I don't know. I kind of happenstance into theater and acting. Wasn't something I went to college for. I thought about. I just met a guy, and that's how it happened.
Well, what blows me away is that you got a degree in chemical engineering?
Yes, I did, and it kicked my butt.
You became an actor?
Yes. I was working at my church as a youth leader and youth minister, and then there was this guy's family. His name is Joe Bradford. They have a movie about him, starring Michael Ealy, about his life. But anyway, Joe used to do plays all the time. So being in the church, he had kids that were in my youth group, and I said, "Hey, man, you help me all the time. One day, hey, I'll help you, whatever you do." So he came up to me. I don't know how much time went past. He said, "Hey, Kenny, we'll do something at the church for Christmas. I want you to be a part." I didn't know what it was. I didn't know if it was a play or not. I got there. He gave me some acting role with no speaking words, but I was the main figure in the play. And man, my life lit up.
You got bit by the theater bug.
Yes, I haven't looked back since. And that was probably 2001. Right. And that happened. I've been acting ever since.
Yeah, I understand. It was a little sooner for me, like before I came out of my mother's tummy. I got it just by mere fact of just being around a lot of show business people, I guess, when she was pregnant with me. But I get it. You get bit by that theater bug, you don't want to do anything else. But let me ask you this, because my son, I have an older son who's a mechanical engineer. He lives in California, and he's a huge thespian too. Plays guitar, good singer, loves acting. And I keep trying to discourage him from becoming an actor and stay with that degree. Did your parents say anything to you after you'd worked?
No. Actually, my family went silent, because I had been in corporate America for a while by that time. And I was doing pretty good, And so when I said I was an actor, I think the silence of the room was like, Kenny has lost his mind.
Yeah.
And so one year I did a family reunion, and we used to always do this picnic. at a family reunion. So I announced to everybody, my family reunion, y'all coming to Nashville, we're going to do dinner theater instead of an outdoor picnic. And Barry Scott had a theater downtown at that time. And I said, so I did that. Then my uncle, who was the patriarch of the family, called me. And I got a couple of calls from my cousin, my aunt. Hey, Uncle Gordon wants to talk to you. And then his wife said, Kenny, I just want to let you know, Gordon wants to talk to you. So he gave me this spiel about the tradition of the family. We don't do theater. We go out, we do this stuff. So I did this play for them called Jitney by August Wilson, which is what we're going to feature next summer. We may talk about that. But anyway, after that, the whole family was mesmerized by theater. And my uncle came up to me afterwards. He said, that might have been the best family reunion we ever did, son.
So you must have been a pretty good actor then, Kenny. You convinced your family.
I convinced my family. They were mad because I got punched in the play in the mouth, and my niece was trying to get up there and fight the actor. She wanted. My mom had to hold her back. Said it was only a play, and so anyway, that's what happened.
So tell me how the Kenny Players came to be. How did that all happen?
So, as an actor, there was not a lot of black theater, especially for black actors. Not a lot of plays for roles for black actors. So I wanted to continue to do work. I had been working with some people out of New York, Woody King and those kind of people. And I had just had a tremendous experience early on in acting. And I said, well, instead of having to ask and see who's going to do a play that I can be included into, because I didn't like auditioning, I said, well,
nobody does.
I'll do it myself. And so I looked at my acting friends and I said, hey, we're going to do some plays. And we started from there. And there was 2 or 3 other people doing it, starting it at the same time. Well, they're actually a little bit ahead of me. But I just wanted to continue to work and do theater. And so I said, I just started myself. It started off as a dinner theater concept called Nairobi Cafe Theater. That's what it really started. And so we put on these little small dinner theater places. I would rent out the venue. I would get a caterer or a restaurant to bring the food. You could pre-order it online. And then when you get there, your plate was ready and you watch a play. Boy, you couldn't tell me nothing.
Oh my gosh. So you got into theater. You did your own company because you wanted to act and stuff. You wanted to cast yourself. Wow. And what shows did you do? How long has this theater company been in existence?
About 14 years now.
Oh,
yeah. We started about 2006, but I've done Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, which is a movie coming out with Chadwick Boseman coming up. And
yeah.
I did Jitney. I did what was that? We done Sanctified, Foreclosure. We done a lot of plays, Crying Shame, Breathe. Last year we did Ethel Waters musical, His Eyes on the Sparrow. We did The Last Season, which is about the Negro Baseball League.
Oh man, sure.
We did Foreclosure, which is about suicide and love. So we've done probably about 20 different productions.
That's incredible. Do you guys do musicals too?
Yeah, Ethel Waters is a musical. Sanctified is a musical written by Javon Johnson, who is one of the main actors on Tyler Perry's TV show, The Oval. He played a butler named Richard. But he's a tremendous writer whom I met actually through Chadwick Boseman.
Wow.
We did a piano lesson for the rep, and we got called to New York, and they were dedicating a theater for August Wilson. And they wanted us to come and be a part of it because of our work we did with August Wilson. So early on in my career, one of the first professional plays I ever did was written by Chad Boseman.
Oh, wow.
Hieroglyphics Graffiti. We did that with Barry Scott under American Negro Playwright Theater. So a couple of years went past, and we were in New York in the subway, and Chadwick Boseman, who came down Durham where we were doing his play, Hieroglyphics Graffiti, we bumped into him in the subway, and he introduced me to a gentleman named Javon Johnson. And I met Javon and started doing his plays, and he had musicals and stuff like that. So
that's awesome, Kenny. That's awesome. Tell me about now. I know that you recently have taken a position with Nashville Shakes. How did that come to be? Well,
I started looking at actors who I thought were very, very good on television, and I noticed a lot of them had done Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm.
And so I initially was doing a play called Sunset Baby, which was on Broadway. I was doing it here, and I was taking it out of town, and I wanted people to see it, but the only time I could do it was at lunchtime. So I said, let me invite artistic directors and people from around the city who don't have to work and maybe can come for a lunch deal. And I would provide them lunch. They would just critique this show before I put it on the show, on the road. And they came. So Denise Hicks came.
She's been on this show.
Yeah, she has.
Yeah.
So she told me she might even watch tonight. So she came and she really liked the show. And so I wanted to learn about Shakespeare. So I started attending workshops and I started to go into the different plays. So last year I went and saw The Tempest. And I sat in the audience and I said, man, what if this audience could see a Kenny Playhouse Theater play? So I met with Denise and I asked her if she would consider doing an August Wilson play along with Shakespeare called Jitney. And from that conversation, we end up, liking each other and liking what we were all about and creating an alliance to do both Kenny Playhouse Theater productions and Nashville Shakespeare Festival.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, I think at some point, maybe we could do a trio. We could add Studio 10 to the mix too, don't you think?
Yes, it'll be a trio.
We could do it on all our stages.
Triple play weekend.
Tell me how it's been going with you and Shakes and Kenny Playhouse Theater. How's it been going with the pandemic?
Oh, it's been going. Pandemic is slowing everybody down, so we don't have any production. So they brought me on as a producer, producing artistic director. So I'm helping producing all of their functions. So everything's been going virtual. We're working on virtual programming right now that we need to get out for educational purposes and students and stuff like that. We do have on November 20th, we have a reading. So what we do is we have a reading from Shakes and then we have a reading from Kenny Playhouse Theater. So our reading, Kenny Playhouse Theater reading, and combined with Nashville Shakes is Sweetwater Taste by Gloria Bond Clooney, which takes place on November 20th. And it will be a live reading directed by a young man a resident director from the Goodman Theater, Chuck Smith.
Oh, great. Yeah, and how do we find out about this?
Go to NashvilleShakes.org.
Okay.
And go to a special events page and you'll get the link on November 20th. And we do something, Kenny Playhouse Theater, when we do readings, we do a special reading. It's called the Reader's Lounge. So we ask the audience to bring food and drinks and sit down and watch us read a play. Similar to if you went to a jazz bar.
It sounds like our show right here.
Yes. Instead of listen to a jazz bar, listen to a band, we ask that you get your food, your drinks, and listen to us read a play. That takes place November 20th, directed by Chuck Smith from the Goodman Theater, Chicago, Illinois. Wonderful, wonderful cast, and we'll be having a great time.
I want to be a part of that. I'm going to come. That'll be great. I'd love to see that. Oh, man. Hey, Kenny, you're awesome, man. Thank you for jumping on here. I so appreciate it. I know you're busy and it sounds like, I mean, what a great thing for Kenny Playhouse Theater and for Nashville Shakes to come together. What a great thing.
Yes, it's been good. We've been working a lot of things out and just really coming together. It's a wonderful crew. Denise Hicks is just an amazing person. And I just love all of them, the whole staff. I just hate that we can't get together because of COVID. But we Zoom all the time. I'm zoomed out, man. I feel like a rocket. I Zoom all the time.
Well, we've been saying prayers for Jack too, Denise's beau, and again, you're amazing. Thank you for being a part of this, and I look forward to seeing you in November.
Thank you, Patrick. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Kenny. You're great. You're great. Have a great evening, pal.
All right. Bye-bye.
See you. Kenny Dozier, ladies and gentlemen. Oh man, he is such an incredible asset to Nashville Shakespeare and theater in Tennessee. And I'm good. And go. I think he said November 10th. Was that what he said? November 20th, so November 10th. But go to the website, NashvilleShakes.org, and you will find out. Okay, our next guest. He is a critically acclaimed director. He has directed record-breaking productions from Broadway to Salzburg to Tokyo. He is best known for Spider-Man, Turn Off the Dark. We're going to talk about that. Boy from Oz, and the Drama Desk nominated THWAK, and the cult off-Broadway musical Zombie Prom, also known for Steve Wynn's Showstoppers, which won Best Musical in 2015. He reimagined and directed the new edition of the aquatic spectacle Le Rêve, The Dream, which is currently running at the Wynn Hotel in Las Vegas, although right now with COVID, I think it's dark, and has been awarded the best title show, or the best show in Las Vegas for 8 years. He has also directed for the Circus, directed and staged the 128th, the 133rd, and the 135th editions of Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey, The Greatest Show on Earth. Please welcome Hugh Jackman.
I am not the boy next door. I don't belong like I did before. Nothing ever seems like it used to be. You can have your dreams, but you can't have me. Oh, I can't go back there anymore. 'Cause I am not the boy next door.
Oh my gosh, wait a minute. I meant the man who directed Hugh Jackman, the incredible Mr. Phil McKinley, ladies and gentlemen. Say hello.
I knew I'd have to have this martini handy. That brought back great memories.
Oh my gosh. I'm looking around YouTube and I'm going, holy smokes. Because, I told you, Phil, I saw that show. It was an incredible show. You did amazing work and he was extraordinary. But I thought I saw this number and I went, oh gosh, I've got to show that to Phil at the opening. It was great. So, we have a lot to talk about. Talk just for the moment. Tell us about that. What was it like working with him?
Amazing. I mean, one of the most enjoyable and rewarding moments, in my career. Hugh's incredible because he is a true Broadway star in every sense of the word. Mm-hmm. He brings into the room that true Broadway workhorse. I mean, like a Cheetah Rivera or an Angela Lansbury or, any of those people. He used to come into work an hour before rehearsal. He'd rehearse. We'd do the whole morning session, 4 hours. He'd take a lunch break for 15 minutes, take a nap for 15 minutes, and then do 30 minutes with the choreographer before we went back into rehearsal for the afternoon. So it set such a high bar for the entire company. Everybody, no one could complain because no one was working harder than you.
Yeah. Phil, I saw him in that show. And like I said, I loved the show. But from the minute the curtain went up to the minute the curtain came down, he didn't stop. It was like, It was a marathon and yet a sprinting marathon. He had to go at full, it was huge amount of work.
It's one of the few shows for a male star that has the same kind of arc that it does for female stars, like if you're doing Dolly or you're doing Mame, those kind of shows. Right. Men don't usually get to do that kind of thing. I think he had 17 songs in the evening, and he left the stage. I think he only had one moment where he left the stage, and that was to make a costume change. The rest of the time he was changing on stage, but it was a real marathon for him, and he was truly amazing. Never missed a performance.
Well, wait, I have to tell you this. I don't know if I've told you this before because we've been friends a long time, but I want to tell you this story if you don't know it. So I get a call from my agent. You guys might have been in rehearsals or maybe it was before. And they said, so they're interested in you to be Hugh Jackman's standby in The Boy from Mars. Now, at the time, because I'd met you. We had the same singing teacher in Los Angeles, and I remember meeting him, and he was, I think, preparing for Boy from Mars, and he's tall, and I'm tall, but he's taller. He's like you. You guys are like taller than me.
6'4", yeah.
So anyway, so my agent called me. He said, would you consider standing? Now I had, at that time in my life, I thought I had never stood by for anybody. No. Okay. Yeah, sure. I'll stand by. Pay me $15,000 a week. I'll stand by. And they basically said, take a hike. But the one thing I remember thinking was, if Hugh Jackman gets sick, I'm never going to go on. I remember thinking that. How could you go on?
Smart guy. That's right.
And did he not, in fact, get sick at one point?
No.
Oh,
he
you
never
never
got sick. In fact, at one point, he needed to take a break. I mean, just because he'd been going 8 shows a week, and so we decided to give him a week off. Producers decided, but instead of running the show, they gave the entire cast a week off.
A week off. So that's smart. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was happy. I was happy they didn't pay me the 50 grand. But anyway, so I want to go back because, like I said, I know you a long time. You have been a huge, huge asset in my life, and in terms of my job that I do right now. And we'll talk about that. First of all,
I made you come over to the dark side.
yes, you did. Where did you? I just heard for the first time. Where did you grow up? In Illinois?
Yeah, in a little town called Avon, Illinois, town of 1,000 people, 50 miles west of Peoria.
Wow.
That's
And at what point did you become? Because we talked earlier that you had started as a dancer, actor, singer. At what point did you become sort of like bitten by the theater bug, like all of us do get?
Well, it all comes from the fact that I was probably ADD, and had drugs been around then, I would have been drugged. And it was just a case where my mother would say, just get out of the house, don't come back till sunset, and go occupy yourself. So I would end up putting on shows in the backyard and inviting all the neighbor ladies to come. And it started that way. Of course, I was always directing from the very beginning, starring and directing.
And costuming, and
of course,
building the set, and all that.
And we even had, there was a neighbor next door who had a barn. We lived in town, but I mean, again, it was 1,000 people. But there was an old barn next door, and they used to park their car in it, and they would take their car out, and we'd put on shows in the barn. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but we did.
It sounds great. It
was fantastic to grow up that way. And eventually, I think that's what saved me, the fact that there were no drugs at the time, that they weren't drugging kids at that point.
Right.
And so, and the fact too that, I rode my bicycle everywhere. You didn't harness kids in, you didn't have to worry about it. It was a time when, little town where everybody knew everybody.
And it gave you a creative outlet, a way to take that ADD brain and just,
Exactly. My grandfather had 2 farms, so I would spend time on the farm, and we had horses and cattle, and my father would, my grandfather would bring home the stray animal that they thought, like a piglet, they thought wasn't going to make it, and we raised the pig. God, named him Porky.
It's so Charlotte's Web of you.
It is. And the great thing about this pig is, everybody in the neighborhood used to drive by our house because the pig was raised with dogs, and it thought it was a dog, and it used to chase cars. People would drive down the street just so Porky would chase their car.
Oh my God.
So it was weird, it was
so then did you because you had said that you would dance, you started as a dancer. You must have started then some formal dance class.
Well, how that happened, I have 2 older sisters, and they both would take piano lessons and singing lessons and dance lessons. And my mother would take them to the lessons, and at the time, we didn't afford a babysitter, so they'd take me along. Well, I would end up sitting on the sidelines, making fun of them, or causing trouble, to the extent that finally the teacher said, "Just put him up here. Just have him get up here just start dancing, and he can just be part of the class." And then same thing happened with piano lessons. I used to go out at these 2 ladies, the Orwig sisters, and they had this little house. They gave piano lessons for 50 cents a lesson. No kidding.
Gosh.
And my sisters took lessons, but while my sisters took lessons, I used to go out in their yard and pick blackberries and raspberries. And then time for my lesson, I would come in and I'd start playing before the teacher got there. Well, she'd come in and I'd stained all the ivory keys.
Well, I was going to say, when you were talking about your sisters in dance class, I kept thinking of the character of Mike in Chorus Line. I'm watching Cisco Pit-a-Pat. I kept thinking of what you're doing,
And then my sister and we became the dance team. My sister Christy and I became a dance team, and we would tour around and go to, in those days you were going to all of the hospitals. Right. That was our main theater. That's where we went. you know.
Wow.
And then, of course, went on to college and then studied theater in college and then ended up.
Where did you go to college?
I went to college in Augustana College. It's a Lutheran college in Rock Island, Illinois. I majored in speech, drama, music, English, and art, had 5 degrees, and then an education degree in 3 years, and then immediately went to Vegas. You know, I just wanted to get out of the mid. I know.
Wait. So, okay, you went. I was going to talk about Vegas. I was going to talk about Vegas later for you, but you went to Vegas before you went to Paper Mill Playhouse?
Yes. I was in Vegas. Let's see. I moved to Vegas in '73, and then went to Paper Mill in '81.
Okay,
but
and
I was in Vegas. It was a great time at the very end of the era when the Mafia was there,
which was the best.
It was absolutely. Now you understand that. I say that to people and they go, "What?" It was absolutely fantastic.
Because remember, my parents opened the
right.
old MGM Grand, the one that's ballets. They opened that room. Right. You know, and I remember, oh my gosh, being a kid there when the mob ran Vegas, it was the bomb.
It really was. It really was. Now, were you there when the MGM burned?
Oh yeah. I mean, I wasn't at the hotel at the time, but I was. Yeah, we had gone. You're talking about when it was the MGM Ballad. Yeah. Oh yeah.
I have the best letter that I worked for Don Arden, who created the MGM show, but I was across the street at the Dunes. And I knew Bluebell, who had all the female dancers. And I wrote to her, and when the fire happened, I said, I hope you and Don are okay. And she sent a letter back to me about how she and Don escaped.
Oh, you're kidding. They were in the hotel when the fire went up?
They were there.
Oh, my gosh.
And they were on the top floor. And Blue got Don, and Don was like hysterical. And Blue had been through World War II and was amazing. And she led him down the back stairs. Oh, and they went to safety down the back stairs. Yeah, it was great.
Okay, so you're there as a performer, and then you went, and then you find yourself at the Paper Mill Playhouse. We talked about Paper Mill. I had no idea.
What happened is I was in Vegas working the Strip, and then I opened a theater called the Meadows Playhouse with 2 friends of mine, and did that for like 5 years, and then moved to New York. And was working as an actor, and eventually I did a production of Desert Song. That was it, for Robert Johansson, who was directing, and of course he was at Paper Mill. And then I ended up at Paper Mill.
And how long were you at Paper Mill?
81 to 91. I left in 91, so almost 10 years.
It's a great theater. I talked to you. We launched in 99, 2000. We launched the Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Yeah.
We were there, and my brother Sean, when he was an actor, he talked about Paper Mill too, because he knew Angelo and he knew Robert, and he had worked.
Great.
I think he did Mass Appeal there or something like that.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. He did. That's right. Yeah, it was a great place to work. I mean,
it's beautiful. You're in Milburn, New Jersey in the summertime. It's fabulous.
Well, and we had this amazing subscription audience. There were 43,000. It was the largest single subscription in the United States. It was amazing. Very loyal. People used to will their tickets, their season tickets in their wills, so that people could keep the seats. That's how, they were hard to get.
We're trying to get 43,000 here. It's a little tough just during the pandemic, but we're going to get there. I know it.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. So I want to, there's so much okay. When did you get into, and I've talked to you a little bit about this. How did you get into Ringling Brothers and that whole thing?
My agent, who is Brett Adams, I was in Japan directing a production. I think it was Hair, and the vice president, Tim Holt of Ringling at that time, of Feld Entertainment, called my agent and said, "We're looking for a director." And he said, "You need to talk to Phil McKinley." And he said, "Well, okay." And he said, "But he's in Japan right now." And he said, "Well, no, we need somebody right away." So they got somebody else. And when I came back, Brett told me about it. He said, "They want to see you for the future." And about 2 weeks later, Brett called me and he said, the guy from Ringling called. He wants to have a meeting with you. And I said, okay, great, but I'm working on something else. I'll meet him for breakfast. And we met at this really old diner on 42nd and 9th. And it was so funny. I sat down with him and he said, we really are interested in you and we hear you. You know, I said, well, what happened to the first director? And he said, well, he didn't want to work with animals.
Yo,
Well, there's a bit of a problem there.
yeah.
So I ended up, he called, it was so funny. He said, will you speak to Mr. Feld, Kenneth Feld, who ran Feld Entertainment? I said, sure. He pulls out this cell phone, which was like this big, you know. And he calls him.
The old ones.
And he says, hey, it's great to meet you. Why don't you go out and see the show over the weekend? We'll fly you to both shows. I said, okay, great. And he said, then I'll meet you on Monday at the office. So I went to the office, and what happened was I sat down at this huge conference table in Kenneth's office, and Kenneth was at one end of the table. I was at the other. There were 4 VPs and various staff people, 4 on one side and 4 on the other. And Kenneth sat down and he said, so what did you think? And I said, well, I have only one question for you. And he said, well, what's that? And I said, why are you trying to be everything but a circus? And the president, vice president, the staff all scooted their chairs back from the table, like saying, okay, this interview's over. We're done. And he said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, for instance, I said, you've got these guys on, you know, inline skaters on quarter pipes. He said, yeah. I said, well, you know, you can see that anywhere on the piers down in California. He said, well, what would you do? I said, well, I put knives on the top of the quarter pipes, swords, and I put fire rings on them so they have to jump through it. Let's put, you know, like, let's put explosions on their skates and do it in the black light.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. And I know you direct huge productions. I know you direct extravaganza. I know, but how did you learn to do this?
I don't know.
I
would never say no. I just never would say no. And then I go out and research it.
Unbelievable.
And he looked at me after that statement. And he said, okay, hire the guy. And that was it. And he was so good. I really liked Kenneth. Kenneth and Steve Wynn are really guys who are cut from the same cloth. They're very involved. They're very hands-on. They have very strong opinions. And they expect you to have strong opinions. Kenneth at times would even test me.
Really?
He'd say, well, I think maybe we should, you know, take the elephants out of that number. And I go, what do you mean? We're not taking the elephants out of it. I mean, he'd test just to see if you'd stand up for your ideas.
Good.
And he knew, he and both Steve both, they really know their audience and they know, they're visionaries, you know, they're just incredible. And I've been very fortunate to work with a lot of those producers.
Well, Steve, we've talked about this because you had brought me in to be the resident director there for Showstopper. But Steve was the visionary that rebuilt Las Vegas. He is the guy. You know, because I remember Vegas from when the mafia started to get phased out. The mob came in, and then corporate America started to take over. You know, but Steve had the vision artistically and creatively. He saw what it would become. You know,
I mean, Vegas is there today because of Steve.
Totally.
And anybody who wants to, like, you know, say that's not true doesn't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so I want to talk about, well, first of all, let's talk about Spider-Man. Okay, so Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark. Now you told me the other day, I got the price tag. So this is the most expensive musical show in the history of Broadway. The price tag was $76 million?
Somewhere around there. Give or take 5-10 million.
Okay.
You know.
All right. So tell me, okay, and everybody knows the stories. I told you about Michael Riedel, who's going to be on the show next week.
Right.
And he wrote a lot of columns about Spider-Man. And
say hello for me. And
tell me how you, when you got brought in to replace Julie and to take the show over, you must have known a lot already and stuff. But what was Were you afraid? Were you skeptical? How did you feel going into that?
Well, that was another thing that happened, by happenstance. I was working with Michael Cole on another show, a show called The Bible.
Oh,
Just on a well-known book.
Small little topic.
Yeah, a little book. Not very many people know it. And I was working with Michael, and I knew he was doing Spider-Man, and we had a meeting about the Bible, and then I was living in Iowa at the time. I'd gone out and started living in Iowa, and I went back to Iowa, and then I flew to Germany actually to meet with Yusuf Islam on a record he was doing, Cat Stevens. And I flew back, and I was stopping in New York to have another meeting with Michael about Spider-Man. No, I'm sorry, about the Bible. And I'm missing. Wait a minute, I got out of whack here. I met with Michael, and then when I went the first time, he said, "Do you want to see Spider-Man?" And of course, I said, "Sure." So I went to the show that night, and it was amazing. It was amazing what they had done. And the visions that Julie had created. I mean, it was just breathtaking. Her visions and her sets and everything. It was amazing. And I flew home the next day, and Michael called me and he said, "So what'd you think?" And I said, "I had a great time. I really enjoyed it." I said I really like the fact it's a boys musical. They're often, musicals are often more curtailed toward women because that's who buy the tickets. And he said, "Well, I'd like to have your notes." And I said, "Well, I didn't take any notes." I said, I just went as a...
We're going to give them to Bono and the Edge.
Yeah, right. So he said, "Well, what do you need to do?" And I said, "Well, I'd have to watch it a few times, So he invited me back, flew me back to New York. And I watched the show for like 3 or 4 nights and made a list of notes, went to a meeting with he and Jerry Harris, said, this is what, I think you should do. I said, "You've got a show. Here's what I think you need to do." And said, "Okay, I'm back to Iowa." Went back to Iowa. And then I got a call, and he said, "I want to know if you'll do Spider-Man." And I said, "Do what?" And he said, "Well, would you consider coming in and working as an assistant with Julie?" And I said, "Absolutely. I mean, she's incredible. She's, why not?" He said, "Okay, I'll get back to you." So about 2 days later, he called me and said, "Would you come in and do it yourself?"
Wow.
Yeah. Well, yeah. He said, "How much time do you need?" And I said, "Well, depending on how far you want to go, And so we decided on that. And then he said, "Okay, I'll get back to you." And the next thing I knew, I flew to Germany, the Cat Stevens thing, flew back to stop in New York. And when I landed, my cell phone blew up. I opened my cell phone, it blew up. And at the same time, it rang, and my assistant, Eileen Haggerty, who I adore, who's been with me for like 17 years, I answered, I said, "What's up?" And she said, "So you're doing it?" And I said, "Doing what?" She said, "You're directing Spider-Man." I went, "No, not to my knowledge." He said, "Well, according to the New York Post, you are."
That's Michael Riedel. Oh, I'll be talking to him next week.
Michael Riedel knew before me. And so I went to my hotel room, and Michael Cole called me. He said, "Don't go to the show. You've got to leave town. It's a mess. It's crazy. I'll call you later." And I went back. That was on a Sunday. Wednesday, he called me, and he said, "Okay, we're going to have you come in and do it."
Wow.
And I saw Julie a couple of times. Obviously, it was incredibly difficult for her. And I simply, the first time I talked to her backstage, I said, "Look, I want you to know I'm not here I'm here to honor your work. I'm here to just get it home, whatever that's going to mean,
Did you get to work with Bono and the Edge?
Of course.
Oh, yeah. How was that?
They were great. They
Yeah.
were very welcoming. They were very. They're both incredibly creative. Edge is a really amazing dramaturg. I mean, Edge, yeah, he truly is. And the thing that now I think about that's too bad. I'd heard stories when the workshop was on that the score was incredible.
Huh.
And I went, I went and took over the show, and about 3 months after we opened in June, I was sitting in the stage manager's office and talking to the stage manager, and I said, you know, I wish I could have heard those original tracks, the first thing. And she said, well, I've got them. And I went, you got them where? She says, they're on my phone. And I went, would you mind giving them? No one had given them to me.
Wow.
And I heard them and I was blown away. And it was just Bono and Edge and U2. It was U2 doing the demos. Night and day.
Wow.
Night and day. It was truly an amazing rock score.
Yeah.
And you know, that's part of that thing with Broadway, where houses have limits on, you know, you have to hire so many musicians in the pit. And the Foxwood was one of the largest. And so rightfully so, they made the decision to expand it. But I mean, I've often wanted to do it again, and I've wanted to do it and remount it.
Yeah. It'd be great.
And take it down. But the team, the cast couldn't have been better. And the crew was amazing, just amazing. They could not have been more dedicated to the show. Everybody was there to make it work, and which is really hard because the critics had already come out and torn it apart. And
well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I missed it. I had a lot of friends on it. Obviously, we both, you know, Kim Grigsby was the musical director and conductor, and I'm sorry that I missed it. It was a lot. I want to jump though. I want to go because I want to talk about how you and I met. We met doing the Music Man, and in fact, I've gotten to do it now 5 times and 3 times with my mother. But
you never hired me to direct.
Yeah, wait a minute. Look at that. There they are, Phil. Look there's Shirley Jones and as Mrs. Peru, and the first time I wore the pinstripes and played Mr. Harold Hill, you were the first to cast. There he is, playing a little Harold Hill with Jason Graw playing Marcellus. That's right. It was a remark. There was the first time you gave me like a little dream come true, because up until then, you know, obviously they know the theater. I told you the theater story about kicking Robert Preston, and you were so smart. You took that story and you put it into the curtain call,
right?
And which was it was brilliant, Phil, because during the course of the show, you also took my mother, who was playing Mrs. Peru, and you had her in different places observing the Marians,
right?
Which was so phenomenal. Because then by the time we got to the end of the show, and I had danced Shapoopy with her, and we did Gary Indiana, all those little things. And we told that story. It paid off because they had just seen a mother and a son.
Right.
It was wonderful. And it started me just becoming obsessed with wanting to do it everywhere else, you know.
Of course.
Yeah, it was great. It was just great.
I love the fact that Shirley, you know, agreed to do that, to play that role. And because it can't be easy to sit and watch watch what she had done. But she so got into it. And I love the fact, you know, Lisa was great that she allowed me to suggest and then accept to have she and Shirley sing together on song, which the audience went nuts because it's that thing where you're seeing the original and it was great.
Well, it was the beginning of, I mean, for me to kind of come full circle, obviously, you know, the story about her being pregnant with me and then getting to play. And then for me in high school, it would change the trajectory of my career when I broke my collarbone. And then of course to get to do it. And then I got to direct it. I've gotten to produce it a little bit. It was amazing. There's my first incredible thank you to you.
You're very
so
it was a great joy.
So then my second big thank you to you is that you then get hired to direct Showstoppers. Now,
It
Showstoppers.
feels like this is your life. Am I dying? What's going on?
You get to direct Showstoppers. Now, Showstoppers, there. Look at that. Look at that picture. That is Showstoppers. That is one of the pictures. That was that. There's the chorus line number where you guys did. We did one.
Yep.
Just absolutely remarkable. Do we have another one too? Oh yeah. And there's
That's
the.
Chicago.
Oh, that's the Chicago. Look at that show. So for everybody that doesn't know, the orchestra is up on that bandstand, and that bandstand came forward. It turned. It did everything, and it was again this amazing piece of theater in which it was all the great showstoppers from Broadway.
Right.
Right.
And they were. What was great about that? That was true Steve Wynn. I mean, when we worked that out, that was done with Steve Wynn really guiding everything, and they were his numbers, the numbers that he saw originally in the original shows. So he saw those original shows,
like in Pajama Game and things like that. Really,
he saw all that stuff, and he is amazing because you can give him any tune from Broadway, and he will know all the lyrics. He'll sing all the lyrics with you.
And he was smart too. I mean, you know, you and I had talked about this. He knows, like you said, his audience. He knows that, you know, yes, you can do a ballad. It's great, but it ain't going to work there. You got to keep it up. You got to keep it moving.
Right.
You got to keep, you know, there's 90 minutes and then they're back at the tables. He kept that energy and that wonderful, which was just all over that stage. You know?
There was one number I fought tooth and nail for. And that was, I wanted to do from La Man of La Mancha. I wanted to do to Dream the Impossible Dream.
Okay.
And I wanted to have it start with I am I Don Quixote, though, you know, that.
Right.
And he just wouldn't do it and wouldn't do it and wouldn't do it. And one day, Joey, singer who was at the piano.
Yeah.
Joey said, we were at a break and he said, oh, Phil, just sing that number. I know you want to do it. Just sing it. So Joey started on the piano. And I started singing it, and the entire orchestra picked it up. Did the entire, and Steve walked in. I didn't know he was in there, and he's sitting there. And I finished the number, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, that number's incredible!" And from the theater, I hear, "You're still not putting it in the show."
Well, I'm so glad that you brought this up, Mr. McKinley. We're actually, I was going to save this for a little longer, but being that you do, we play a little game on this show.
Oh, man. I'm going to lose.
Now, we call this game Remember the Lyric. Only this time it's Remember the Lyric for baritones. So this is.
I don't remember yesterday. How am I going to remember the lyric?
By the way, that's what Treat Williams said too. I can't remember what I had for breakfast. So here it is. This is how it works. I'll give you the first lyric. And if you remember, no pressure. You come back at me. If not, it becomes a solo. So here we go.
You prefer that, right?
And I'll put, no. I'll point at you after A. So here we go.
I bet you will.
To dream the impossible dream.
To fight the unbeatable foe.
To bear with unbearable sorrow.
To run where the brave cannot go.
To right the unrightable wrong.
To love pure and chaste from afar.
To try when your arms are too weary.
To reach the unreachable star.
Oh my God. Phil McKinley, you just beat Norm Lewis for when we, you know, that was unbelievable. And Steve Wynn wouldn't put that in the show?
No.
That was brilliant. You're going back into musical theater performing, my friend. So let's go. Okay. All right.
You should have finished it as a duet.
Oh, I'm telling you. Yeah, that'd be great. You sound great, man. Did you ever do Shake? Did you ever do Shake?
I'll sound better in 2 minutes.
Did you ever do Shakespeare with that voice?
No. I mean, I did straight, but the one role I did all the time, and this was ridiculous. I started doing it in college, and I've done the role either 4 or 5 times, is Henry in The Lion in Winter.
Oh, wow.
I don't know why, you know, but I never really did Shakespeare.
Because you have, some people just don't have the facility. You actually have the facility to do it. Yeah.
Well, that was the thing, because when I worked at City Opera, I had to sing for Beverly Sills.
Right.
And, and I'd been trained as an opera baritone. I studied opera.
Uh-huh.
But I was 6'4" and 160 pounds. So it was kind of like Jim Neighbors.
Right.
Like the voice didn't go at all.
Right.
And then I ended up, I got hired for Desert Song. But of course I was doing the comedy lead, which I love. This acting partner I had for years, Lillian Graff. She was like Imogen Coca. And the wonderful thing I loved about Lillian is Lillian never did 2 performances the same way. So I had to be on top, really watching. But I loved that I never knew what was coming.
It keeps you on your toes. You never get bored.
Yeah. And we had this duet together, which of course we had to do as comics, not legit. I'll never forget the review in the Wall Street Journal. Miss Graff and Mr. McKinley's duet sounds like the battle between 2 Hoover vacuum cleaners. But okay. But stayed with me. At least I remember the review.
Exactly right. I want to also just, again, my second big thank you to you. So I get a call. I was doing a little night music in San Francisco, and I had worked at Le Rêve, and we'll talk about that. I had worked at Le Rêve as an acting coach. I had come over there, and you called me and you said, would I be interested in becoming the sort of resident director? And Phil, that was the beginning, really the beginning. I'd been a teacher. I'd done some producing on the road. I'd started directing and worked at colleges. But it was the beginning of me really looking at behind the kind of scenes and could I do this? And that led to my my first artistic director job. But I've said this to you before. I can't thank you enough for turning me to the door.
What's great about you is that, which sometimes people can't do. You have, especially right now during COVID, you have to kind of, be ready for anything that comes at you and be willing to change and mold and explore the door that maybe only opened a crack. Mm-hmm. I always tell students I work with that don't say no, just consider it at least. Because you never know where the opportunity is going to lead. Like working with Steve Wynn, that came out of doing a birthday party.
Yeah, I know about that. For him or for who?
It was for Andrea, for his wife.
That's right.
He wanted to do her 50th birthday party. Rick Gray, who we all know and love, the VP of Entertainment at Wynn, he called me and he said, Look, I had been there because they had called me about coming in to Mark Fisher, who had done some work on Le Rêve, had recommended me to come in and take over Le Rêve, but 6 years before I did. And so I'd met Rick. So Rick called me and said, look, I know you've directed on Broadway and I know you've done all these things around the world. I don't want to insult you, but would you be interested in directing the birthday party for Steve Wynn? And I said, well, tell me more, And he did. And it ended up being one of the most exciting evenings. It cost something like $4 million.
Did you bring Hugh in? Didn't Hugh do it?
Brought in Hugh.
Yep.
And you did like a 40-minute set. And we did these numbers from Broadway. But Steve we had this huge big speakeasy that we created. And everybody came dressed Great Gatsby. And I mean, everybody was dressed in Great Gatsby. Wow. And I have a great picture with
Do you have the clip?
Carl Rove, his wife, and Tommy Hilfiger. And we're all in, period costume. But and we did these Broadway tunes kind of before with the orchestra on stage. And Steve came up to me during the final rehearsal, and he said, Phil, he said, do you think this could be a show? And I said, Steve, I don't know, but if you do it, I'm there.
Wow.
And he called, and we met on June like the 16th of that year, and went into rehearsal in September.
And the Showstoppers became a show.
Yeah.
I want to show now. I've got your incredible reel, which gives our audience a little bit of just how amazing you are all across the board. So let's show that right now. Phil McKinley. Wow.
I've always told people I'm still doing shows in the backyard. It's just the backyard's gotten bigger and a lot more expensive.
And it's gone above the ground too.
Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, it's amazing. You're remarkable.
Yeah, I've had the great fortune of working with some of the very best, and they've been just terrific, supporters. And, and by the way, a lot of that choreography from Showstoppers is, of course, Marguerite Derrick's is just, I adore her. That lady's got a great career. I mean,
oh boy,
her stuff. And I'm so excited because she's doing the new season of Mrs. Maisel. And she told me the other day that evidently, Amy, the producer, has put dance in like every episode. So
good.
You are going to see Marguerite Derrick's everywhere. It's going to be great.
Well, I'm going to call her for this. I'm going to get her on our little show.
Great interview. Love that lady.
So tell me what you've been doing during this crazy time, this pandemic time.
Trying to stay busy like everybody. Developing a new musical about Ella Fitzgerald.
Oh, wow.
With Anna DeVere Smith is writing the book, who's just phenomenal.
I'm sure.
Yeah, and a new play called Cockfight that's written by a guy named Greg Hurwitz. And it is a really interesting, it's kind of like Virginia Woolf.
Oh, wow.
It's about an intellectual dinner party where a guy's intellect just becomes an ire at all the guests. And it's so amazing how the guests then turn it back on it.
Is there booze involved?
Yeah, they're doing a lot of drinking during it.
I'm sure. Virginia Woolf.
But Greg is the New York Times #1 best-selling internationally of thrillers. He has like 21 thriller novels he's done. Terrific guy, amazing guy.
Now,
and like Aaron Sorkin.
Did you not? I just want to make sure because you and I talked. Didn't you during this pandemic? Didn't you kind of go back to the small screen and do a little acting as well?
Shame on you.
Did you do a pilot?
I did a pilot, and that came about because a good friend of mine back in Iowa is a casting director, and she knew that I was a casting director, and she called me and she said, "You lived here for a while." She said, "Do you know anybody? Here are the roles. Do you know anybody?" And I gave her a couple names, and then she said, "Wait a minute." She said, "There's a character role." She said, "Would you audition for me?" And I said, "Kim, come on. I haven't done this for like over 2 decades. This is, and so very long story short, I did put an audition together. It ended up the director and the writer were really sweet people and liked what I did, and then called and said, "Well, would you really commit to this?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean? Of course I would. It's just a character role." And they said, "No, we want you to do one of the leads." And I went, "Oh."
I think we have a photograph. Do we have a photo? Oh, there he is. There he is. Tell me, that glove, if that glove could speak, tell me about this photograph.
I have a new career. So when I give up the theater, I now know how to artificially inseminate cattle.
Perfect. There
and
you
that
go.
was the real thing.
Can you do it with them hovering in the air?
I don't know. That would be something. But I watched the incredible Dr. Pol on TV and watched him very closely. And then I watched videos, and but I grew up on a farm.
Right.
So
right.
Again, I'm not afraid of cattle. I delivered, we had horses and I delivered foals. So I'd been around that end of an animal. So
it's great. It's great. Well, I
will say though, that cow was a lot easier to work with than a lot of actors.
Oh,
a lot of actors.
That's what I say. We'll talk about that off camera. You are extraordinary, and I am.
And so are you. So it's mutual. It's a mutual love fest. I feel. Oh God! Now I feel like we're Andrew Cuomo and Don Lemon. Every night. What the hell is that bro fest? Jesus.
We play another game on this show.
Uh-oh.
No, it's actually, I think you might like this. It's called You Become the Host. There it is. And you get to be the host for one question and only one question. So we've had some interesting ones on the show over the time. We're in our 28th week here, Phil. This has been a really amazing thing.
Right.
It again just came out of nothing. So think of a question, any question that you'd like to ask moi.
As a host, you always get to prepare. So you just throw this at me while I'm on air.
It's okay.
Okay. Here is a question I have for you. Tell me what it was like for you when you finished that first show of Music Man next to your mom.
Oh, it's a great question. I felt like I'd come full circle. And it started even before that. It started the first day of rehearsal, and it really sort of culminated when I got to sing. It's Till There Was You for the first time with Lisa, and we were there and and my mother was in the corner, and I saw her do this. I saw her just start to cry.
Oh yeah.
And when I got on stage, and I got to go through all that stuff, we put so much work in such a short amount of time and all the choreography. I was exhilarated. I felt like I had finally arrived at what I always wanted to do my whole life.
Because one of my favorite memories of that evening was the curtain call and your mom coming out. And, I'd said, tell that amazing story. And watching you standing right beside her and right in back of her, watch her. It was such, that's the thing I like most about directing. I love giving people moments, giving people memories that they go back and they go, wow, I'll never forget this. Because I've had,
it will never leave.
I've had hundreds of those. So
you are a dream. I adore you. Thank you. Thank you so much for doing our show.
I adore you too.
You're amazing.
It's a mutual love fest, just like Andrew and Don.
Yeah. We're gonna create one. We're gonna create one.
All right.
Take care of yourself. Give my love.
Hey, and best with the theater.
Thank you.
I hope that you guys come out ahead. I'm sure you will, with your leading the way.
No.
And I think it's great because I mean I love Nashville. I love that area. It's just
You guys. So then
man,
you gotta
it's a
come.
great area.
You gotta come when the time is right. I bring you out.
Did you go see Doyle and Debbie?
No, I haven't seen it yet. No,
Go
but
see
I
Doyle
will.
and Debbie.
I will. I will.
You gotta see Doyle and Debbie.
You're the best, Phil. Take care of yourself.
too.
Stay healthy. Stay safe. And I send you so much.
Absolutely. Love you too.
Bye, bud.
Bye bye.
Phil McKinley. Oh my gosh, he's amazing. That is our show for tonight. I hope you guys donate. Remember, we survive on theater tickets. We survive on donations. And right now, no theater tickets. They're at the bottom of your screen. Studio 10. You click the donate button and messaging Studio 10 Talks. It's right there. Remember, we have our bourbon. It starts tomorrow. Get your tickets at studio10.com. They're $10. This is a $1,200 bottle. This is a $250 bottle. They frame me very nicely. And we have a little goodbye song tonight. I think I'm going to sing one of my familiar ones because my son brought it up and he's going to sing it on our family show. I'll tell you about that. Oh, next week on Monday, Michael Riedel, the famous journalist for the New York Post. He's going to talk about Spider-Man. He has a new book coming out. He is absolutely incredible. Tune in. Michael Riedel's on our show at Studio 10 Talks, and I'm going to sing this for tonight. Good night, my angel, time to close your eyes. Good night, everybody.